All right, let's do business again. We have 25 minutes for updates from the world of business, and here's what we've prepared for you. In Kenya, annual inflation has remained high, not surprising though. And Egypt is set to get $1.8 billion from the IMF. European Union is interested in Africa. They're setting out about 585 million euros to support small businesses. Welcome to the program. I'm Amy John Mekwa. We start from the global oil space as usual. We see oil prices move higher today after that drop that we recorded earlier today. Investors are monitoring that recovery in crude oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz, which earlier eased supply worries and following the resumption of hostilities between the United States and Iran earlier this week. So looking at what we have, we see Brent has gone back of 0.58%, $89.55 a barrel. WTI is also up $84.25. Remember earlier today we talked about the intervention of Saudi Arabia, and that brought a bit of ease, but it seems that the spark is back on. So we see the green colors. Natural gas follows to 0.4% up at $2.77 a barrel after gaining 0.4%. Closely related to that is what we see in gold, but this is on the flip side reaction to all of this. Gold dropped more than 1% today as the US dollar regained footing, but it's still on track to post its first monthly rise since February. As investors are looking at rate hike bets. The bet is that after we've had this hold, that's what we've been having all through this year, talking about the United States interest rate, the next one would most likely be a hike. And so spot gold, we see that slipped 1%, $4,062 per ounce, ahead of a weekly rise of 0.5% yet for the week. US gold futures, that's for August delivery, that also lost 1.1% to $4,059.70. Gold is struggling to regain meaningful momentum and remains in the corrective phase of a broader structural bull market. So apart from gold, we see silver also dropped 1.47%, platinum almost 1% down, also palladium almost 1%. Just copper is able to escape the red color at this time at $6.49 a barrel. So other stories, Kenya's annual inflation rate exceeded the midpoint of the central bank's target range for a third month. And this, as energy costs, is fueling most of this. Consumer prices rose 6.5% in July compared to 6.4% in June. This is according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And the nation's Monetary Policy Committee had projected a rate of 6.7% this month. Ethiopia and Canada are strengthening bilateral relations with renewed efforts to expand direct trade and investment between the two countries. Officials from both nations say the initiative is aimed at boosting economic cooperation, attracting investment, and creating new opportunities across key sectors. The move is expected to enhance commercial partnerships, increase trade flows, and support long-term economic growth. And the European Union, they've committed 585 million euros to support small and medium-sized enterprises and other priority sectors, and it's part of efforts to promote economic growth and private sector development. The funding is expected to improve access to finance, strengthen business resilience, and encourage investment while supporting job creation and sustainable economic expansion across participating economies. From North Africa, the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, they've completed their latest program review for Egypt, paving the way for the release of $1.8 billion in financing. The approval reflects Egypt's progress in implementing economic reforms that's aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability, strengthening public finances, and supporting sustainable growth. The latest disbursement is expected to bolster the country's foreign exchange reserve and reinforce investor confidence as authorities continue with structural reforms. South Africa is stepping up investment in maritime security and ocean-based industries as it seeks to unlock the full potential of its blue economy. And that's supposed to create jobs and boost trade, protect vital marine resources. Facing challenges such as piracy, trafficking, and illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, the country has linked maritime security with economic development. Authorities are modernizing port infrastructure and expanding ship repair facilities at major hubs, including in Durban and Cape Town. And they say this will improve trade resilience and strengthen South Africa's position in global shipping. The government is also investing in initiatives under Operation Farkisa, the marine aquaculture and fish processing. And this is set to generate employment in coastal communities and enhance food security as well as stimulate growth. And it ends soon. The World Public Summit that was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, marked the first time that the global gathering was hosted on the African continent. The summit brought together government leaders, policymakers, development partners, and what they did was to discuss public sector innovation, governance, and sustainable development. Organizers say hosting the event in Africa reflects the continent's growing role in shaping global policy discussions and advancing public sector transformation. We head to the markets now. First earnings, latest earnings. We see the big guys releasing their performance, and we start with MTN Nigeria. Record high is what they have for their profits. That's MTN Nigeria, H1, first half of 2026. We saw the revenue for that went up 25.9% at 2.99 trillion naira. Operating profit also went up 41.9% at 1.27. Profit before tax, that went up 75.4%, and profit after tax really closely connecting to that 70.6%. So I guess it's a good one. The first half did well for MTN Nigeria, and of course, if you're an investor there, I guess that you were happy. Well, they also recorded 25.9, and they say all of this is despite what they tag a challenging macroeconomic environment, and they're able to come out with this. We'll see what happens for the second half. And then we also have Boa Foods. Boa Foods also delivered stronger bottom line for the first half, posting what we see here, operating profits in the first half at 320.5 compared to what they had in the same time last year. That's a 13% increase. That's for the operating profit. And profit before tax saw a 14% increase when we see the numbers, 314.9 billion naira compared to 276.7 billion, which is what they had this time last year, 2025. And then profit after tax is 12% higher compared to the first half of 2024. And they say that their performance underscores the company's ability to protect earnings and maintain profitability amid a challenging business environment. Their gross profits we see is 37.2, or was 37.2 in first half of 2025, and it's gone up to 47, while for the operating profit margin has also increased. So we see an increase in their margin compared to last year. And looking at all the live numbers now, at least close to live numbers. Intraday, we see that the NGX has sustained the positive sentiment that it had earlier today. Even though it closed negative yesterday, we saw a recovery this morning, and that has been sustained. It's looking still shaky. Anything could happen, seeing it at 0.05% at intraday, but I mean, it's in the green, so Hopefully, this will be built on. We'll see a lot of cherry picking and money coming into the market to make that a stronger stand at the close of trade. For Johannesburg, it's 0.26% in the green, obviously stronger than what we have in Nigeria. Egypt does not trade on Friday. And then, of course, we have for Nairobi at close of yesterday. Moving on to the Middle East, we see mixed sentiment at intraday for the markets there. And then in the United States, futures were higher. Wall Street staged a sharp rebound with upbeat earnings from Amazon. Of course, earlier today we did hear from our correspondent telling us how the market fared at the close of trade yesterday. But these are features for today. Looking green, I guess the sentiment of some stability and intervention from from Saudi Arabia may be giving investors a bit of calm and all of that. But in Asia, most of the market closed higher, led by a sharp rebound. South Korea's technology-heavy benchmark index and South Korea's Kospi, we saw that surge. That's the Kospi, 7.91%. Nikkei also looks good at 4.03%. The Hang Seng is also positive, 0.10%. Let's see other parts of the market, the Shanghai and Nifty. Everybody seems to be happy at this time, but I wonder if they're happy in Berlin. We have Chip concluding this week now with investor sentiments at intraday. Hey, Chip, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Ini.
Yeah, so how are investors faring now?
Well, they've definitely been faring very much on the side of optimism today, Ini. And European shares did actually hit a record high today. And now the Stock 600 is actually up 0.3%. And the DAX is also higher at 0.2%. But they were trading much higher earlier in the day. And that was largely driven by an improvement in investor appetite for tech shares, which is something that you just mentioned. Corporate earnings have also been helping buoy markets amid the ongoing hostilities in the Middle East that we've been seeing this week. And now, Ini, European stocks are actually on track for their fourth month of gains. Tech stocks on the Stock 600 today jumped 1.7% after tracking gains in Asian rivals. Now, this week, of course, what we did see is that earnings from American tech giants painted a mixed picture for the sector over concerns of over hefty spending on artificial intelligence. And that has, of course, left tech stocks vulnerable to the wild swings. But of course, today it is much of the time positive news rather than the negative sentiment that we've seen.
Yeah, well, I remember, I think earlier this week, we did see the tech stocks dragging the market down, but I think they're getting some positive attention now, especially with the EU setting up about 10 billion euro for investments in artificial intelligence.
Exactly, indeed. The European Union is aiming to attract two times the 10 billion euro investment it is aiming at artificial intelligence, and that was announced later yesterday. And the goal for that is to draw an additional 20 billion euros as well in private investment. So that would bring that to a total of 30 billion euros. And the 7 AI gigafactories that would be financed through that would, of course, help the bloc reach the scale of computing power which is needed to accelerate artificial intelligence development in the European Union, and that's according to Brussels. Now, companies in Europe can bid for contracts to build gigafactories, which would be far more advanced than the existing data centers, and they would roughly have 4 times more the computing power than what Europe currently has with its network of 19 AI data centers. So that would mean that the computing power would be more than double where it is right now. Now, this is, of course, any part of the EU's tech sovereignty efforts.
So I wonder why this is important. I mean, $10 billion and all the strategy. Obviously, it shows that European leaders are giving priority to this.
Well, European leaders, Ini, are worried about the dependence of the bloc on foreign providers. They are afraid that these services could be weaponized and that European customers could be cut off from such services without warning or even regard for how that could affect them or their businesses. And we got a reminder of that in June when the US government ordered AI provider Anthropic to suspend access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5, citing national security concerns. And that was another example that European users could be cut off from services abruptly. And of course, there are also fears about kill switches and the data that is being collected and how and where that could be used. But the problem is that Europe lags far behind the United States and China. And if we look at China, for instance, that country has a huge capacity for electric power for data centers. And the United States has the lion's share of private AI investment. And of course, there one can think of the likes of OpenAI with ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude, and even the older tech players like Alphabet, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Meta. All of those, of course, are investing billions in AI. So the EU needs to do what it can to catch up.
Yeah, catch up and they will. Thank you so much, Chip, for giving us updates on that.
Thanks, Ini.
All right, let's head to the crypto space now. We saw a red yesterday and we still see it today. In fact, there's a word I read that is redder than yesterday. So 1.88% drop is what we've seen in the price of Bitcoin. 63, remember it was at 64 yesterday, but it's now at 63,669.23. Ethereum has gone back to this resistance point of 1,008. When are we going to get out of this? 1,876 lost more than 2% in 24 hours. That's the story of Ethereum, XRP, TRX, and Solana. They are in the red. A lot of uncertainty is still going on. But let's beam a light to Nigeria. Of course, following that executive order by the president of Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu, was heard and seen a lot of movement around there. Now people are talking about, in the midst of regulation, there's what they call smart contracts. You know, it's a new era, so we have to learn a whole lot. Now, let's try to understand this now with Ayodeji Samuel, is the head of chambers at Block Law Consulting. Hi, Samuel, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
So what are smart contracts? You legal people, I hope you will not send us back to school. You know, what are smart contracts again?
All right, thank you for the question. When you talk about smart contracts are a piece of code which has this logic in them. The logic is called if-then logic. What it means is that if you satisfy certain predefined conditions, the code itself will self-execute. So let me give you by way of analogy. If you go to a vending machine and you insert your coin and you press the correct prompt, it gives you the product that you want. That's exactly how a smart contract works. It's a piece of technology that is going to execute by itself, and it's automatic on its own without any human involvement.
So amidst all of this regulation, a new era for digital assets in Nigeria, what are some of those risks for businesses and even individuals that people should look out for and protect themselves against?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And the first thing I would like to highlight is that if the regulatory status of smart contracts are not defined in Nigeria, because presently they are unclear, no law made by the ISA 2025 or SEC rules or the NTA has made provisions for a technology like that. If the government does not, if there are no laws to regulate smart contracts, it means that nobody will adopt it. Businesses within a commercial sector would not find the confidence, because when something is recognized by the law, it brings about trust. That's one. Now, on the investor side, you will discover that when you use smart contracts, you create tokens. Now, if investors buy tokens and they store it on exchanges, and for instance, the exchange is hacked and the tokens are stolen, cryptocurrency are stolen, they do not, the question of do they own that cryptocurrency is left for the law to determine. And most times in advanced jurisdiction, you see that they would declare that cryptocurrency are properties that an individual can own such that if they are stolen in such scenarios, they can find legal remedy. But if you look at the case of Nigeria, we do not have any law. ISC 2025 has not done that. No judicial interpretation. There are no cases in the court that clearly define that if you own a cryptocurrency in Nigeria, they are your property. And another instance to also look at is cryptocurrency exchanges that are storing investors' token in smart contracts. And if they collapse, if these cryptocurrency exchanges collapse, there is the question of do investors are investors entitled to remedies in case of insolvency. I can tell you clearly that in Nigeria, even the Kama 2020 does not make any provision for digital assets in insolvency proceedings. So what this means is that Nigeria does not have enough laws that cater for investors' protection and consumer protection. And you would now understand the reason why a law firm like Block Law Consulting were advocating for a comprehensive digital asset rule in Nigeria that can cover all these gaps and loopholes. I can cite a quick example. There's an FTX case going on where you all know about FTX, this popular crypto exchange that collapsed in 2022. There is an ongoing bankruptcy case proceeding in the US, and Nigerian investors cannot claim any remedy. According to them, they said that our crypto laws are unclear and undefined. So what I am saying in essence is, if these things are not clear, we cannot protect our investors, their
So, so,
consumer
so,
protection.
so some of that means there needs to be changes to our legal system to be able to accommodate this new normal when it comes to digital assets.
Yes, the point is we need comprehensive digital asset regulation. We need a law that would govern all these aspects, laws that would separate the existing legislative mandate between said CBN, a law that would establish an interagency relationship between them, such that if any of these agencies go beyond their oversight, we can challenge their actions in court. So there's a need for a comprehensive digital asset regulation in Nigeria so that we can cater for concerns relating to investors when crypto exchanges collapse and investors are just left to the mercy of not knowing what to do. They don't even know whether they can claim. These are gaps that are present in Nigerian crypto asset regulatory landscape at the moment.
All
So we
right.
need a comprehensive crypto law to address this.
All right. Thank you so much, Ayodeji Samo, Head of Chambers at Block Law Consulting.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's see stories making the headlines in the crypto space. And we begin from cryptocurrency exchange Bybit. They've upgraded their dual asset investment product with new features, and that's designed to improve the user experience and simplify access to structured crypto investment. So there you have it. Bybit has something new for its customers. South Korea, they're preparing to launch a stable coin. This is a stable coin consolidation bill, and that's supposed to create a unified regulatory framework for the issuance and oversight of stable coins. Stable coins getting really popular there. And also, there's the cryptocurrency ownership in Canada has gone up to 25% of the population, highlighting the continued mainstream adoption of digital assets. It's a new normal for the world. So there you have it. Of course, it's also growing here in Nigeria, and I believe that's why the president of Nigeria has gotten involved, giving that executive order. So, well, those are the stories making the headlines in the crypto space, and that's where we say thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated. All through the week, we have another journey that starts next week. But before then, please go to our YouTube channels and watch Business Morning, Business Incorporated all through the weekend. Stay armed, stay informed, and I'll see you tonight for the Stock Market Report.